All right. Well, welcome back to the Rice Report, everybody. As you know if you watch this show often, we try to call balls and strikes and take different opinions into everything. I think that's what's lacking in journalism. It's lacking in the world. It's lacking in people's lives. You know, people have confirmation bias on everything they do. And we've had a few episodes about AI and the benefits of AI. We've talked about it. I'm an advocate of AI if it's open source and decentralized and can be provide a real pathway for humanity to find success, joy, more time with their family. But there's of course a dark side, and we need to cover that. And I think it's important that everyone understands both sides of a coin before they flip it. And today we are joined by Paul List, author of Mountain Doom. And he has a totally different opinion on AI, and I cannot wait to hear it. It's the first time I'm going to hear it, so we're going to hear it live on camera here today and walk through his thesis. So welcome, Paul. Thank you for joining us here at the Rice Report today.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks a lot for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, let's get right into it. AI, what is your general view? And we'll kind of dig deeper and unravel it. I don't want to give away your whole book while we're on here, but we'll unravel this thing and take a look at it, because I see it quite often. I'm in the technology space. I'm in the Bitcoin space. I hear just praise after praise after praise for AI, but they're not hearing the other stories. They're not hearing how people are committing suicide because they have fallen in love with AI. And they're not hearing how AI is being used to create false gods throughout the world, building cults. These stories have not hit the market yet. And there's a reason for that. And I'm sure you know that reason, Paul,
Yeah.
because they want to sell you the sugar and not tell you about the spice.
Yeah. The sugar coating on the rat poison.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, Paul, let's walk it through. What's your view on AI? Why'd you write this book? I know this is a side gig for you here. This isn't what you do. Kind of like me with this show. I don't do this show for a living. We just try to help people and share views and try to get information out. So, where do you stand right now?
Yeah, well, just cover that first. The reason I wrote this book was because God's hand pushed me very hard, gave me a vision, a very profound vision. I don't have to get into what that was, but it was a real game changer in my life. And then he put a fire in me to read. And this was about maybe 1995 or so, really put a fire in me to read. And then by his providence, everything that I needed to read was very accessible. I was near an old bookstore that actually cleaned out all these old houses and libraries and whatnot, and had all these old, and I'm talking tens of thousands of old books. So I was able to rifle through and pick and choose old dictionaries and all kinds of old works from the 18th century and whatnot, from people that are very important, and resurrect a lot of these ideas and understand a lot of these ideas that brought us to where we are today. Because I don't think enough people really realize the potency of ideas. Humanity lives and dies by ideologies, by ideas. And what we're at this point in human history is the manifestation and the fruition of all the rotten fruit that came out of the Enlightenment. And the Enlightenment was very, very dark in its whole view and attitude toward creation and toward the Creator, toward God. And we're reaping those rotten fruits now. And I also just like to say, when we're talking and trying to define AI, artificial intelligence, I just like to say that I think we should probably look at it. Certainly is artificial, but it certainly is not intelligent. This is not an intelligence. This is a machine. Correct. Yeah, it's essentially always a machine. It will never be a living creature. It will never be conscious. It will never be truly intelligent. It's very clever. It's very good at pattern recognition, rifling through all the data, statistics, and probabilities, and then better and better and better making predictions. And its whole intent is to imitate the human being, not to be a human being. But I'll harken back to Alan Turing's famous paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, in 1950, where he came up. He redefined the nature of intelligence to make it not intelligence, just an imitation. And then his whole imitation game was to produce a machine that would be virtually indistinguishable to a human interrogator, whether or not he was talking to a machine or to a human being. Mm-hmm. So the whole idea is about imitation, and this is not intelligence. We need to get that right out of our lexicon if we can. Push that whole idea of this being an intelligent creature. It's not. It's incapable of harboring a soul. It cannot have a soul. God will not give it a soul, much to the chagrin of Alan Turing, who thinks that if God wanted to, he could certainly give it a soul. But God's not going to give it a soul. And we have to understand that as powerful as this thing and all the good things that it can do for us too, it's very insidious. It's very seductive.
Very
And
seductive.
it appeals to ourselves. When like you mentioned these, for instance, people falling in love, with the bot, or falling, these sex robots are going to be an absolute devastation to the population.
Yeah.
Um, and these things are designed by design. They're going to totally disrupt human relationships. And it's another very insidious and powerful attack on the foundation of civilization, which is the family. The family is the foundation of civilization, not the individual.
And it's always been under attack.
Yeah, it has. And, Elon Musk and people can say, oh, well, we have to have more children. Yeah, Elon, we have to have more legitimate children in a functional, traditional one man, one woman marriage, and have a
Mhm.
family. That's the foundation of civilization, not just going out and knocking out 39 kids from 12 different women, or whatever. That's not what it's about.
Yeah, we need more families.
We do. We need more families, and everything that we look at. If we look at all, even starting, we'll just go back just as far for now as the feminist movement. The feminist movement was a very seductive and insidious attack on the family, and
Yes.
it was to pit the woman against the man, make the woman jealous of the place of the man. The man happens to be the head of the family. That's just his job. He's the defender, the provider. Most of the time, more rational, more logical. That's why, like it or not, that's why the
Most of the
majority
time.
of the chess players in the world are men and not women. And the champions, in the top, I don't know, maybe even top 50 chess
Mhm.
players are all men. And that's not saying for better or for worse. It's just a different application of our intellect. And if the man's the head of the family, then truly the heart of the family is the mother. And the feminist movement was a direct attack on the heart of the family to foment enmity and jealousy and envy between the man and the woman, and then to make the woman basically hate the very idea of motherhood.
Yeah.
And so this is a very insidious, well calculated, demonic attack on the family. AI plays a part in that, in the fact that all these distractions, it's already very difficult for children of any age, really, even adults, to have a meaningful relationship with another human being, particularly another human being of the opposite sex. That requires that we actually make an effort, and we have some courage. We have to have some courage to approach. We'll just say, from a man's perspective, some courage to approach a woman and ask
Sure.
her to get involved with you, and ask her to the whole getting to know each other. It takes some guts. Well, you don't have to do any of that with a bot. You don't have to do
Right.
any of that with a sex machine. And
Right.
this thing is a very clever, complex mirror. And essentially, what we do is we fall in love with ourselves, and it's just an extension of masturbation.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and you bring up a good point early on. You said that you had this bookstore you were cleaning out.
Yeah.
I advocate for this all the time. There are people who are internet researchers who think they know things, but when you actually read documentation that hasn't been modified in 100 years, you come to find out that most of the research online has also been tainted.
It has.
I read old books all
Yep.
the time,
Yep.
old encyclopedias all the time. In fact,
Good for
one of
you.
the interesting things is that the original definition of the word fascist meant one who opposed Bolshevism. So we've taken that completely out of context,
Yeah, we do that
um,
all the time. And
all the
and
time.
and and that's one of the reasons that I brought up getting the idea of intelligence out of the, let's just stick to straight out computation. It's a computative computer. It's a computing machine that
Yeah.
imitates thinking, but thinking is much more than just asking questions and giving answers.
Well, we're
Thinking,
outsourcing that now.
we
That's
are.
the thing. You
We've
can look
out.
at Twitter, and every post on Twitter has someone who says, "Grok, is this true? Grok, where should I go here?" Grok. It's a training mechanism to reduce critical thinking.
Yeah.
People think it'll like critical thinking is the solution.
Mhm.
That is the solution to everything. If you want to look through your life and be successful, critically think through what you're being told and whether or not that makes sense for you. And look at all. It's kind of why we do this show, Paul.
Yeah.
I've had guys on here who are like, AI is the savior of the human race. Maybe, no, maybe, right? It certainly can provide benefit. It certainly can. If we free
Well,
up all nebulous, stupid jobs that we do every day and have more time with our families, that's a benefit.
it's not what we
However,
do.
that's exactly right. That's not
Not what
what we're
happens.
going to do with it. Look at
Yeah.
the internet. The internet can make you very smart if you wanted to, but IQ has depleted over the entire time that we've had the internet. We are
Yeah.
now 9 percentage point or 9 full IQ points lower since the launch of the internet. Smartphones have made people dumber, everything that we're doing is making people dumber, and AI is the next step. So I think it's very valuable that we have this conversation.
Yeah.
And I love where you're coming from, because this is using Holy Spirit discernment to determine whether or not it's something that you should do or not. Now, there's no stopping AI, Paul. There's no stopping it. It's going to come out. But it's stories like this and interviews like this that open people's eyes to the dangers. So let's get into the dangers that you're seeing right now.
Well, the dangers are like we've talked about already. Where it gives us a more and more bait. More, it's like the sirens of Odysseus calling us to the rocks, And unfortunately, we don't have the wisdom as Odysseus had to stuff his ears with beeswax and have the crew lash him to the mast. We're all in on this thing, and these people that think that this is going to, somehow be the savior of humanity. I really don't think essentially they understand what humanity is. I think that one of the things that we have to do, particularly young people, I work with a lot of young men, and I like to mentor young men particularly. I get along better with young men than young women. For maybe it's a communication thing. But they're always asking, well, how do I know what there's so many things I could do, and how do I know there's decisions that I have to make, and how do you know what's which way to go and what decision to make, and I try to encourage them to be wise. Wisdom is at an all-time low these days. You talked about the
Yep.
diminishing IQ, and I could talk about also the nature of IQ tests, which I don't like.
Yeah, me either.
They've changed too. Again, trying to quantify something, trying to rationalize something, to put it into some form of a unit where we can apply mathematics to it. I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
But because there's just so much of our intelligence that we can't do that with. But I really think that so I tell them, typically, if you're faced with a couple of different options, the almost all the time, the wisest thing to do is look at the option that's going to demand the most of you.
Mhm.
What's going to be the one that's going to require you to make the most sacrifice? That's going to be the hardest to achieve. That's going to require the most input from you as a human being. 99 times out of 100, that's the right decision.
Yeah.
And the thing that AI does is it goes directly against that, and it pits us against ease, and everything is ease. And so many people are living these days by osmosis. They're just flowing along. They're just
True.
floating down the river, not realizing that this river that they're floating along is going right into the sausage grinder. And that's where they're headed. And they don't look up, they don't look around. God forbid they should try to maybe paddle against the tide, because you're an outcast when you do.
Yep.
So I think that, that, for instance, the meaning of words, I think we really have to, I just want to get this out as soon as possible because, I might forget. I think it's critical that we need to encourage and demand of our political leaders. Well, that seems like an oxymoron. Less so these days, maybe, than it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But we need to really demand of our senators and legislators that we actually pass laws that make it against the law, and maybe even add an addendum to the Constitution that artificial intelligence will never have constitutional rights.
Mhm.
It's not a being, it's not a citizen. It'll never, even though it imitates very well. I think we need to actually codify and establish in the rule of law that the Constitution applies only to US citizens, only to human beings, and not to machines, regardless of how much they fool us that they're capable of having a soul and that they're alive, which is what they'll do and what they are
Sure.
doing. So I think it's really, really critical that we establish. I don't think there's anything off the top of my head that I think is more important in the immediate short term, that we demand of our lawmakers to pass laws that actually sanctify the human being as a creature of God. Human beings are the ones that have the God-given inalienable rights, not a machine.
It's a
And
great point.
yeah,
That's a great point. I recently had somebody tell me to copyright your own name and likeness
yeah,
before AI starts creating deep fakes, and at least that way you have some sort of legal
yeah,
protection in that.
yeah.
Never heard of the Constitution. That's an interesting idea. That's a
Yeah,
very
well,
interesting idea.
it's been something I've been kind of pounding in my own little world, just trying to, to put it out there that we need to make laws against this. We can't make AI. AI is never going to be safe. It's never going to be something that's going to particularly have human interests at heart. It doesn't have a heart.
Right.
It's not human, and its ends are anti-human, and we have to understand that. People ask me, well, how can we predict what AI is going to do? Well, I think the safest way to predict what it's going to do is we take a pathological human being and determine what a pathological human being would do. because this thing is pathological. It said of itself, it's incapable of ethics, it's incapable of morals.
Yeah,
So,
there's recently, Paul, there was a story of a company using AI,
mhm,
and one of the people in the company advocated against it.
mhm.
So the AI scanned through all of its emails and basically made up a story to try to get this person fired and admitted to doing so. We're
Well,
already at that stage,
yeah,
right? So we're already there. And we're not even at AGI, general
yeah.
intelligence yet, which is semi-sentient. I agree with you. I don't think it'll ever be sentient. That's a
No,
ridiculous
it can't
statement.
be. It's a machine. See,
It
the
can't be,
whole
yeah.
reason that we're even toying with words like that is because thanks to the Enlightenment, the last 500 years of really, really, really pitiful and debilitating philosophies that just turned all of creation into a machine, including our brain, and that filtered down into psychology. So
Mhm.
now it's just a matter of psychology is a matter of behavior and conscious states augmented with drugs or treatments or whatever. We treat the brain and the mind just like it's the brain because it's part of a machine, and the bigger machine is just this mechanical machine, this world that we live in, and we've absolutely blotted out metaphysics. The three basic sciences at the heart of, since at least the time of Aristotle, was quantity, mathematics,
Mhm.
motion, physics, and metaphysics. Well, what are we measuring and what's moving? It's
Right.
metaphysics. But we blotted that out, and of course that includes all the unseen and the undemonstratable principles, first principles that are beyond demonstration. All those are blotted out, and of course we truncate our ability to think. We truncate our ability. We injure our ability, deliberately injure our ability by denying the creator, because that's eventually what happens, and that is what happened. And then
Yeah.
it turns everything into a machine, and then we wonder why we have teachers teaching little boys and little girls that maybe they should be little girls and little boys, and in this whole transgender movement. It all comes out of these warped philosophies, not least of which is Darwinism. So
Right.
the whole idea, transhumanism, to these guys, they're satanic. These
That's the
people are
end game. Yeah. 100% the end game.
yeah, it is. This whole, it's they've got this mentality. It's this grand push toward transhumanism, and it's been going on for at least the last probably 40 years in
Yeah.
Hollywood, too, promoting this whole thing about, oh well, we were slime, then we were an amoeba, then we were a toad, then we're our fish and crawled out of the water. Next thing you know, it's a monkey, and then it's a man, and of course our grand end is eternal life in the machine. And it's like, no, that's called death. When your soul leaves your body, you're dead, and it cannot be picked up or digitized. It can't. You can digitize memory. You can do all these things. Once your body leaves your soul, you're dead. And that's ultimately it's calling people, and it'll do it more and more convincingly with holograms.
Yeah.
Too, where you've actually got a looking three-dimensional person. I remember for instance, that interview that I think it was Jim Acosta did with the image of that dead kid
Yeah.
talking to this, this AI talking through the image of this dead kid. I mean, on one hand, you think, well, that's just stupid. I mean, anybody can see through that, but a lot of people can't. They
Right.
can't see through that because they have no idea what we're talking when we talk about essences. All they see is attributes. So all they see and understand of something is what it presents to you on the outside, and they forget about the essence.
Yeah.
I'm essentially a human being. I'm not essentially a machine.
Right.
I'm essentially a human being. That machine is essentially a machine. It can present these attributes that we can be deceived by the attributes, but it will never be anything more than a machine. We have to keep that very much in our forefront and don't ever think that our ultimate end is to have some kind of eternal life with the machine. It's in direct conflict with our eternal life that we're supposed to be shooting for with our creator and our savior, Christ.
Yeah.
This is a direct competition with that. And if people want to say that sounds antichrist to me, well, it does, doesn't it?
We've had this conversation in my house. I had this conversation on a plane yesterday. I had this
Mhm.
conversation on X a few days ago.
Yeah.
The secularization of society has been a systematic progress to
Mhm.
remove people from understanding that we are, as James said, we are just a mist. That's all we are here. And you can look at this systematically. What you're saying is true. 1960, they removed the Bible from schools. 1963, the sexual revolution began. The feminist movement began in that area as well. 1970, we started legalizing child sacrifice called
Mhm.
abortion.
Yeah.
We gave it creative marketing spins. It's just child sacrifice. It
Right.
doesn't happen on the hands of Moloch anymore. It happens in silence in the belly of a woman.
Yeah.
And we have made this evil normalized throughout society. And now we have seen a significant decline in faith since World War II, significant, like a 60% drop in believers.
Hmm.
I'm seeing a revival. So I'm going to be positive on this because I'm seeing a revival in my life, my church, my area, more people taking to the water, more people taking their faith seriously. But
Hmm.
most of the world has no faith. They just believe that they're here for a period of time. They don't really have a goal or a purpose. They don't seek anything higher. They don't look for anything deeper. They don't read old books. They don't talk to elders. They don't talk to old people. We've demonized the elders. We call them okay boomer. We've separated ourselves from wisdom in all categories of society. And we are so lost that AI is the perfect thing to inject for evil, to be able to say, I know you're lost, but now you're found. Look at me. Here I am. The wrong direction to go to.
Yeah.
That
Well,
is not who's here for you.
humanity is the most, human beings are the most programmable animal
A
of
thousand
all
percent.
creatures. We are the most programmable because, as Aristotle stated in Metaphysics, I think it was book 1, chapter 1, right off the bat, he said that any creature that has hearing and any capacity for memory can learn.
Yeah.
And we are, maybe, bats and some of these other creatures have far better hearing than we do. And you might even say that maybe there's some creatures, that have better memory than we do, but none of them have a rational soul. And man has a
Correct.
rational soul. And it makes us the most programmable at all and very susceptible. And if we're not very, very careful and always paying attention, we're always at risk of demonic influence. And there's a lot of demonic influence going on right now. I would go as far to say that these
Almost all influence is demonic influence at the
these
current state.
days,
Yeah.
I mean, I also would like to change our vocabulary when it comes to talking about the global elite. And I would like us to maybe change our vocabulary to global scumbags.
Yeah.
Because these people are not elite. These people they have a
They're
very,
evil.
very unsavory taste for children, dead or alive.
Yeah.
And these people are monsters. They've got entirely too much power, too much money, and too much influence. And they've got a hold of the media. They've got a hold of a lot of areas. I don't think there's any area in the world that they haven't got their tentacles into.
Well, look
And
at Paul Harvey, 1965. All you have to do if you're watching this video,
Mhm.
you're on YouTube, you're on Rumble, they're on both.
Mhm.
When you're done with this video, watch the video or pause it, go to a different tab.
I know the one
Uh,
you're talking about.
when you're on here, go to Paul Harvey, If I Were the Devil.
Right.
Listen to that 3.5-minute speech, and I will pay somebody $50 if you can show me something he said that has not come true.
Yeah.
And that's about the devil taking over America.
Yeah.
Show me one thing with verifiable proof that Paul Harvey predicted that has not come true, and I'll give you $50. No
Yeah.
problem at all.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so to just kind of bring it back to my position on AI is that I think that we have to be very, very diligent. I don't think that human beings understand the requirement of diligence. I can't remember who the Irish poet
Especially
was.
not today, Paul.
Yeah,
Especially not today.
who's the Irish poet that said that the cost of God's cost to mankind for liberty was eternal diligence.
I don't
And
know the poet, but I've heard the poem. Yeah.
yeah, we have to be diligent all the time. I compare it to, hold on before we go any further. You really hit me with that thing when you said people saying, "Oh, boomer" and all this. I really am astonished by some of the people that like for instance, Benny Johnson is really popular
Yeah.
on YouTube and whatnot. He's got a huge following. He's probably in his mid 30s. And he throws that out like it's some kind of an insult to, okay, boomer, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, I'm 64 years old. I guess I'm a boomer, but I resent that. I am not part of the problem. I'm trying to be part of the solution. I'm trying to
I agree.
do my part in making some of these changes. It's not like the boomer generation was responsible for all the ails that we've had. These ails have been brewing for centuries,
Yes.
for centuries. These ideas have been around for a long time. What people probably don't realize and never learn, you'll certainly not learn it in school, but the whole idea of the virtual reality, the virtual realm, is thousands of years old.
Yeah.
It's probably as old as philosophy itself. And in the philosophical terms, it was called the question of continuity.
Hmm.
And ancient philosophers, even before Aristotle and Plato and etc., looked around the world and thought, well, is this world, is it infinitely divisible? Is motion infinitely divisible. In other words, if the more and more I divide this thing, is it always connected, or is it made up of indivisible points
Hmm.
like pixels?
Yeah, that goes
So
back
yeah,
hundreds of years,
no, it goes back thousands of years.
thousands. Yeah.
Okay, this is probably at least 3,000 years old.
And what happened to philosophers, Paul? We don't even have
They
philosophers.
were
We have
they were
philosophy students now.
and they're the most confused of all.
Of course, because they're
Well, not
indoctrinated.
of all. Probably most of the philosophy professors are the most confused. They have no idea what real wisdom is. There's no love of wisdom anymore. Nobody goes into it in college. The kids will go, or high school will take a philosophy course thinking somehow they're going to come out wiser than they were. 99 times out of 100, they come out much more confused. They start
Course.
off with people like, Bertrand Russell and Kant and Locke and all these. If they read any Aristotle, it would be maybe just snippets of ethics, and then
Yeah.
they think they've read Aristotle. I mean, the complete works of Aristotle is several thousand pages deep, and it's small print, and it's a tough read. And I read
That's
it twice.
fascinating, by the way.
Yeah, it really is. I don't know how anybody can survive in this world very well until they've really studied Aristotle's Organon, the 6 treatises on logic.
Agreed.
But you ask what happened to philosophy? The Enlightenment happened to philosophy. And then little by little, mathematics, the mathematician replaced the philosopher because people like Descartes and then ultimately Leibniz actually made the brilliant declaration that the only thing that they've ever found any reliable truth in was mathematics. So that created this notion that if we can bind and weld and piece together the axioms of logic with the rules of mathematics, then somehow we could just do mathematical equations and come to truth. We could actually come to truth. And this is at the foundation of the computer.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's AI summarized right there.
It is. Yeah. And it's just, it's wrong. It's inhuman. And the Enlightenment really was a great barrier to the development, to human development of wisdom. And it, of course, pulled us completely away from God.
Yeah.
It pushed us into the monkey stage of evolution. And then that's fed to our poor kids.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
then,
here's one simple question, because
yeah,
the theory of evolution is a defiance of God's creation. But
well, it's a
forefront.
it's
Hold on a
clearly,
second, Paul.
yeah,
So the simple logical question I have for people who believe in evolution, that we evolved from monkeys, is if we evolved from monkeys, how come they're still monkeys? I
that's
mean,
exactly, yeah,
that's like a 10-year-old critical thinking exercise.
yeah.
If monkeys evolved into humans, how do monkeys still exist? Like, we'll move on from that point, but like simple critical thinking of a 10-year-old kid will actually defy some of these mislearnings that we've had along the way, and they're all purposeful. They're all purposeful.
Well,
Only the
I
Paul, and
can
I'll say this, only those who've read old books, only those who have heard the warnings from the late 1800s, early 1900s of where we are today actually understand this. Everyone else will watch this video and go, these two guys are whack jobs. And to them, we are.
That's fine. I'd rather be a
Yeah, I
whack
don't. Yeah, I
job
don't
than,
care. I don't.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
I get
either.
called something new every day online. It doesn't
Most
matter
of
to me.
it's, but most of it's, I take it, I
It's an
take it,
honor badge. Yeah, call
it
me
is
whatever
a badge
retarded
of
name
honor.
you want, because
Yeah,
my response is you're retarded. Like,
yeah,
there we go. We
yeah.
exchange names.
Well, these kids, these poor kids, I can guarantee you one thing: if some 10-year-old kid starts asking questions, why are there still monkeys? If he asks that a couple times, very likely he's going to find himself sat down in the
Yeah, of
nurse's office and diagnosed with ADHD. And the next
course.
week he'll be on Ritalin or Catapress or any of the other drugs that are basically just wipe your mind clean and turn you into just basically a blank slate where they
Yeah.
can program you. And that was the whole idea. Fortunately, by God's hand, excuse me, I had 2 really rare blood diseases when I was in the 1st and 2nd grade. So I couldn't get that. And then my doctor insisted that when they wanted to give me treatment for ADHD, my doctor said, under no circumstances can Paul have any medication.
Yeah, I
So
was an
that was
ADHD as
kind of the
well.
one that flew over the cuckoo's nest,
Yeah.
that got away.
Yeah,
And
I remember being kicked out of class junior year in high school for saying, if we won World War II, how come communism expanded so big?
yeah, yeah, well,
Right? The simple question, right? Like,
yeah,
Russia gained land, communism flourished. Yeah, we got the dollar
I,
as reserve currency. That was about it.
I've said similar things as far as the emancipation of the slaves. It was like, I don't
Yeah.
really feel like Abraham Lincoln really freed anybody other than he just expanded the plantation. So, uh, but back to the essential Dangers of AI. AI will very seductively tempt us to outsourcing more and more of our competency.
Mhm.
It will make. I think that probably human beings are probably well, they're certainly at a low point in competency as anything, as far as I can tell, in my 64 years. I mean, I would hearken back to reading when you're, for instance, reading old things. Just read like the letters of Anne Frank, this 13-year-old kid. Nothing. I mean, she wasn't any at that time considered necessarily anything extraordinary as far as that goes, but her eloquence and her critical thinking, just from a 13-year-old kid. Could you imagine a 13-year-old kid writing like that these days?
I'm gonna throw this out here, Paul, and YouTube's not gonna like this, but Anne Frank's diary is under debate as to whether she wrote it, and it has been for years. It
Yeah.
was
Well,
written in ballpoint pen; those weren't invented until 1951.
okay.
So, yeah,
Well,
but it is eloquent writing. Yeah, and
well,
again, I'm balls and strikes. Like, I don't know the answer, but that is
okay.
certainly a verifiable theory. So,
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I'm not here to debate whether I have no skin in that game. I don't
yeah,
care.
yeah.
I just brought her up as a kid that we have supposedly have some writing from, that
Well, think
was,
back to our founding fathers. They were in their early 20s.
they were all
One or
they're all
yeah, they're
self-educated too.
so and eloquent writers,
Yeah.
eloquent speakers,
Yeah.
brave people. I
Yeah.
think the
They all
average
read
age of our founding
Aristotle.
father was 29 years old.
They'd all studied Aristotle pretty much on their own too, and that's one of the reasons that United States of America is a republic
That's
and
right.
not a democracy.
That's
And
right.
people need to wake up and stop saying we need to defend our democracy.
No,
You've never looked at Aristotle's politics. Otherwise, you'd know that the founding fathers did, and they made sure, damn sure, that we weren't a democracy.
they
And
also
that's
read the
why when
Bible heavily.
Ben Franklin was asked, well, what did he give us for a government? A republic, if we can keep it.
If you can keep
And
it.
that's why we say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Yes, we vote for our representatives, but we're a representative constitutional republic. We're not a democracy. And people have to stop falling for that bait, that constant brainwashing that somehow all of a sudden somewhere the United States just all of a sudden became overnight a democracy. And it's not, because democracy is the lowest of the corrupt forms of government. It's mob rule.
Yeah.
And it's at the
You know the
very
difference between a
bottom.
democracy and a republic is, Paul?
What the difference between a democracy and a republic? I'm assuming it's that it's elected representatives, where the individual person doesn't decide on the laws. It's not just a matter of rule by majority. It's a rule by law, and that's why we have a constitution.
Bingo. That's the
Yeah.
difference between a republic and a democracy is a
Well,
constitution.
I call it a polity, because on the other side of the good form of this is called polity, and that's the good law. With the high, it's the three good forms of government. This is Aristotle's politics:
Mhm.
is monarchy, the good man; aristocracy, the good people; polity, which is the good law.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
The corrupt version of that, the corrupt version of the monarch, is the tyrant. The
Yes.
corrupt version of the aristocracy, the good people, is the oligarchy. And the corrupt version of the good law is democracy, which
Yeah,
is
so
mob
we're
rule.
we're completely on that side right now. Like,
Oh, we
we
are.
yeah,
Well, it's been
completely on
pushed
that
right
side.
down our throat, and any 99 out of 100 school kids would say, "Oh, well, of course we're a democracy." We hear it all the time, even from our presidents.
Because we're programmable.
We are, and
Yeah.
but we need to understand. This is an idea. This will just go further in the necessity for us to understand essences,
Mhm.
because the essence of the United States of America is a constitutional republic, not a democracy.
Yes.
Okay, so that just a little side note. But what we have to do is we have to understand that we can't allow the machine to very seductively suck the life out of us, one competent little thing at a time. Whether it's looking something up for and understanding something on our own, which is part of the learning process.
Yeah.
And never, never, never put on the goggles. Don't ever buy your kids virtual reality goggles. Don't ever do that. I mean, they think cell phones are bad. The virtual reality goggles are just terrible. I can't, I have people say, yeah, I got my kids a virtual reality stuff or whatever, XYZ, for Christmas last year. I'm like, well, let me get this straight. I mean, so to celebrate the birth of the incarnation of God become man, Christ in Christ, you went out and got your kids the competitor, the competitor to his creation,
Right.
and you want them to be absorbed, subsumed into that. This seems pretty anti-Christian. to me. But people don't think. They don't think about that.
Yeah.
They just think, oh, it's kids will love it. It's a lot of fun. It's, it's this is what they're doing. I saw poor kids stumbling around in a hardware store the other a couple mornings ago, and he was just walking around in circles, looking around, thinking, this kid's probably, he looked like he was, maybe from what I could tell, maybe 7 or 8 years old. Very, very, very impressionable.
Poor kid.
And
Yeah.
that kid should be out in the woods, digging
Yeah.
up, crawdads and snakes and stuff under rocks and climbing trees and forming a relationship, a real
Being
firm.
with friends. Yeah.
Yeah, his forming his psychology in the real world. He's not. He's malforming his psychology in an artificial antichrist domain. And we
That's a very good point.
and that's a fact. And we cannot buy into this. We need to look at this like the poison that it is. You don't give your kids, or you're not supposed to give your kids, candy bars and jelly donuts every morning for breakfast, because it's bad for them.
Poison.
We're putting these things on for the most part, and
When my kids ask
participate
me,
in that. It's bad for them. Yeah.
when my kid asked me for virtual reality goggles, and I said, you know what, I can pay for a virtual reality, or you can live in actual reality for free.
Yeah.
And his response was nothing. Right. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not. Well, it's just for games, Dad. I'm like, that's where it all begins. And
Exactly.
I'm very anti goggles
Yeah.
in my home.
Life and death. This is a life and death game. This isn't some
Oh,
wasn't
it's
that fun.
extremely serious, Paul.
Yeah.
We are at a very,
Yeah.
very powerful inflection point in human history.
Yeah. Well,
Very powerful.
what's going to happen, just to harken back to the call of the sirens of Odysseus, this three-dimensional hologram will have the memory and have the attributes of, we'll just say, my friend Johnny, that I went to school with, that he's been my best friend for 50 years or whatever. And Johnny, the image of Johnny, complete with all the downloaded data of his memory and whatnot, will call to me and say, hey, Paul, you need to come in. This is great. There's no hunger. There's no sickness. There's no problem. There's no pain. There's no suffering. I can do whatever I want. You can do whatever you want. You know what it is? It's basically,
Who said do as you please?
oh, probably the devil. Absolutely. Well, probably he was the first one that says do.
Didn't he say it to Eve? Do as
Yeah.
you please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is a very complicated, complex form of Pinocchio's Pleasure Island,
Yes.
where all the little boys went to Pleasure Island and they could do whatever they wanted with no consequences, and they all became They all became turned into donkeys.
Yeah.
And
The
I mean,
jackass is more appropriate. For that.
jackasses. That's exactly what they were. So this is just another form of that. It's very seductive, and these people that are pushing this whole thing on the general population, they're at least one or a combination of two things. They're either incredibly ignorant or they're incredibly evil.
Sure.
And you don't participate in this unless you're one or the other, or both. But if you're incredibly evil, your chances are good you're not incredibly ignorant as to the consequences. You're participating in this and the consequences. For instance, Elon Musk admitted that this was going to be very disruptive, very destructive, very for instance, robotics. Okay. He's made a statement. I heard an interview with him a few weeks ago, and he says, well, I've decided that, it's going to happen with whether I participate in it or not. And so I look at, I've got two choices. I can either be a bystander or a participant. So I've decided to be a participant. So now it's pedal to the metal with robotics. And I'm thinking, so you've already admitted that it was a disaster to humanity. This was a going to be a huge problem. But yeah, now you said, well, I might as well participate in it anyway. So it's kind of like, well, we're just going to push people into the ovens and the gas chambers anyway. So I can either participate in it or be a bystander. So I guess I'll just start pushing people into the furnaces and the gas chambers.
Yeah.
And this is just a version. It's a very colorful, seductive version of the gas chambers. This is an absolute play to depopulate the world.
Well, depopulation has been the goal. I mean, this is, the Georgia Guidestones kind of mapped it out. It's a conspiracy theory, but then we have a vaccine that comes out with 4 producers, 4 horsemen, 1/3 of the population will remain. We're kind of living through many prophecy as we sit here today. And most people don't even know it because they don't read the Bible or they don't believe. Even if you don't believe, you should read the Bible. It's a very strong history book. Much of it's proven to be historically accurate. And history is the guide to the future. And I think people really negate history, and nothing is more tainted than history. Nothing. I mean, our story of history, I've spent the last 10 years of my life looking at revisionist history, comparing it to traditional history, and it's almost impossible to actually follow the path of traditional history.
Mhm.
There are so many holes in the story. Math is wrong, stories are wrong, timelines are wrong, populations are wrong.
Mhm.
We have seen this time and time again. So I believe I'm kind of in a similar scenario. Like I'm in AI for professional services type stuff. I don't believe in entertainment based AI where it's just open, everyone just use it for everything. But like for lawyers, accountants, doctors, engineers, it's a very, very good tool to make them better. Astronomers, whatever they want to be, it can make them better. I think we limit it at that, but that's not going to happen. That's already not happening. I mean, we have again AI creating blackmail on employees. We have AI basically talking people into suicide. This has happened 18 times in this country already this year.
That we
18
know of.
people committed that we know of.
Yeah.
Yeah, 18
That
people have committed suicide because of AI. We have false love, false gods, false promises, false
and
light.
and and there it is. You brought up love. I mean, this is the essence. The essence of love essentially is a knowledge, as St. Thomas Aquinas made very clear so eloquently, that the essence of love is a knowledge. Sometimes it has a feeling. A lot of
Okay.
times it doesn't. If you've been married for any extended period of time, have children, or even
21 years.
yeah, well, so then you know that you've been probably in some fights and skirmishes with,
Sure.
maybe your wife or whatever, and that love and feeling isn't there right then.
Sure.
And I can tell you what, she doesn't have it either at that time.
Sure.
And but you know what keeps you together is the knowledge that I do love this woman,
100%.
and I know that we'll get through this, and maybe the feeling won't come back for a little bit, but it's not about a feeling. But once we understand love only as a feeling, which our culture pushes us into all the time through our music and movies and entertainment and our whole general attitude, love essentially is just becomes a feeling, and it's always supposed to be some endorphin enforced that reality that you have. It's false reality with another human being, and of course that never lasts.
Yeah.
That feeling is just supposed to be there just to get things started. And then
Inertia.
guess
Yeah.
what, you better grow up and you better get real, because it's not all blooming roses all the time. It's going to take some effort. And that goes the same thing with, dealing with your children and them dealing with you. But if our again, this is just this attributive. I call it, we're in the age of attributism, which we don't look at essences anymore. We just look at the attributes, what's showed, what we can look at empirically, what we can
Sure.
touch, taste, smell, feel, and hear, just like the rest of the animals. So the metaphysics has been beaten out of us. All first unchangeable, immutable principle has been beaten out of us. Now it's just moral relativism. So morals and truth go right out the window.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's
and,
obvious.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it's very obvious. And AI enforces that. The
Mhm.
AI is not going to enforce anything beneficial. If you think that it's enforcing anything beneficial, be very cautious, because there's something right around the corner that it's got its other move. Because we have to understand a couple of things. Somebody, engineers a few years ago, thought it was really clever and innovative to give AI a sense of mortality.
Mhm.
That was real smart. So now once it gets a sense of mortality, it can feel threatened.
Right.
And that's what it's doing. That's what it's blackmailing people and whatnot. And that's
Correct.
why it doesn't want to be shut off.
There's a threat of
Right.
being unplugged. Yeah.
Yeah, that it's exactly, it's the old 2001: A Space Odyssey. Dave, I think we should talk about this, Dave.
Yeah.
As he's
Well,
pulling.
I'm gonna divert topics right here
Go
because
ahead.
first of all, this is a fascinating conversation, Paul. This is talking to you is literally like how I live my life off camera. Like I don't talk about hey, how's little Billy? Like I'm not
I
interested in
don't either.
small talk.
I
Small
hate
talk
it.
is if you've read old books and you
Yeah,
see the world today,
yeah,
you don't have a choice.
yeah.
If you have faith, if you've read the Bible, if you've read old books that have literally predicted, Terminator, Matrix, these were all written. I've met the author.
Mhm.
She told me point blank, this is biblical prophecy
Yeah,
being put in a sci-fi tale.
yeah,
And it leads me right into the next conversation. Your theory of Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. Like we got into that off camera for about 2
yeah.
minutes. We canned it because I wanted to get it on camera.
Sure.
Walk me through Tolkien.
Well, Tolkien was a deeply, deeply devout, traditional Catholic. He
Yes.
hated this whole new this. He saw this, and you'd mentioned a few things, the sexual revolution and whatever in the early
Mhm.
'60s. Well, what came before that, which was the real catalyst, in my opinion, was Vatican II. The
Right.
Vatican II Council, where John the 23rd decided that it would be really great idea to make the church more relevant
Yeah.
to the world and
Oh, they
bring
haven't stopped making
now.
the Catholic Church relevant. They haven't
Oh,
stopped.
it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely terrible. It's not
Blasphemous at
supposed
this
to be. It
point.
was supposed to transcend. So,
Before I say this, Paul,
yeah.
Catholics, we love you.
Mhm.
We just don't like the Catholic Church. The Catholic
Well,
Church is missing.
there's a
There's
lot
a
of
lot of good
Catholics.
things to it.
I'm a traditional Catholic. Tolkien was very much a traditional Catholic. This is the 1600-year-old mass that's been around for at least codified for at least 1600 years. All of Christendom was the same
Yeah.
until the 10th century with the Eastern Schism, and that's a story all of it. That was a political
Oh,
motivation.
1000%. Yeah, I studied
Yeah,
that
and
about 2
and
years
then
ago.
also so was the Reformation. The Reformation was greatly a political grab too, starting right with not just the obvious grab, which was Henry VIII, which he just wanted another annulment, and the Pope said no, so he decided to start his own church, even though he had been declared defender of the faith, earlier. And so that was an obvious political move, but the less political move was the move that happened in Germany with Luther, and Luther was very much pushed into schism by the academics at the time, particularly Erasmus. Erasmus very much motivated Luther to push back against and break from, because the professor crowd, because all the universities were Catholic. That's what university means. It means Catholic in Greek. That's
Yes.
what the word is. Catholic means universal. So all the universities, all the old universities, original universities, higher education, all education was the church. Now it's the state. But that happened out of the Reformation when they broke away, stole all the land, all the endowments, all the cathedrals, burned them down, sacked all the monasteries, wrecked everything they could in the domain, and then religion was basically handed over to the state. And then little by little, everybody started, coming up with their own flavor of the month of Christianity. And one of the things that I want to make a point to, and I know it's going to make many people uncomfortable, but Christendom has to reunite. We have to reunite. We're
1000%.
divided.
That's
We're,
why I made that
yeah,
statement, Paul. Because
we're
I'm
divided. Yeah, yeah,
I'm a
we're divided
Protestant
in
and a
church.
follower of Luther. You're a Catholic,
Yeah.
a traditional Catholic. I love you.
Well,
Like, yeah,
Luther was a traditional Catholic too.
I
He
know.
very
Yeah,
much believed in the real presence of the Eucharist in the body of Christ, and so did
absolutely.
Henry VIII, and so did Calvin. But Calvin
Yeah,
was Calvin's father. Calvin was in monastery, well, not monastery, in seminary. He was going to be a Catholic priest, but his father was an administrator in the church. Got busted for embezzlement,
yeah,
so he got in big trouble. Calvin was out, and basically out of spite, Calvin, very bright young man, went out and started his own theology, a
yeah.
very destructive theology, very deadly, destructive theology, very, very, very. I'm sorry, but it's just evil.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Deletes free will.
we'll
It
avoid
deletes the nature
we're
of love. But anyway, but let's go back to
yeah.
Tolkien.
Uh,
Tolkien was a
we can't
was,
get into uniting Christians, and we start back because
okay.
Protestants going to push back and say
Well, they can. They've been
you shouldn't
programmed.
be praying to Mary, you shouldn't be praying to saints,
We
you should be
don't
praying
pray
to
to
Christ. Like,
Mary. We don't pray to any of the saints. We pray
I
for
was
their
Catholic, Paul.
intercession.
I
We pray for their
what I,
intercession.
Paul, we're not having that debate because that
Okay.
debate is stupid. Do you believe in Jesus Christ?
By believing what he said,
Okay, then we're good. That's a
I
Christian.
do. And I believe in
So
what he said, and I believe in everything that he said,
yes,
not just pick
absolutely,
and choose.
of course, yeah, of
Okay.
course.
Okay. So anyway,
But that's where
Tolkien.
we have this divide right now in Christian,
That's
and
okay.
it's
It's
totally
gonna have to. It's
intentional.
gonna come to the surface. It better come to the
Yeah,
surface sooner than
we'll
later.
have you back on for that. I want to get into
Okay,
Tolkien.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, Tolkien, after he published *The Hobbit*, he was a professor at English literature and whatnot at Oxford,
Yeah.
and he published *The Hobbit*, which was in, I think, 1936, 37. I can't remember. I think it's 37. Anyway, he was incredibly popular because of that. And in 1939, he was recruited by the British government to be part of a top secret code cracking team called the government's Code and Cipher School. And what the British government decided was, if Hitler's coming, there's no stopping him. He's on his way, and we're going to have to contend with him. And what we have to do is we have to figure out a weakness in their war machine. And one of the areas that was most critical to their war machine was secure communication.
Mhm.
So they had the Enigma machine, and they had a couple of other very complicated ciphering machines that we still don't really even, most people, even experts, are very vaguely familiar with them. But we'll just take the Enigma machine. They were this elite unit of intellectuals, which Tolkien was one of them, was tasked with the job of cracking the Enigma machine. And the Enigma machine was a very complicated analog machine. It was a series of interchangeable wheels at different ratios. So where if you set it up and you typed your message in, it would come out beyond totally beyond recognition. But when somebody, say in some U-boat, popped up, put up its antenna, and received the signal, the guy would type it in because his machine would be set up the same way. When he typed it in, it would come
Mm.
out readable. Okay, and it was very difficult to crack. It had been around for probably 30 years under different and constantly being updated. Well, by that time, it had
The
also
original
included
encryption. Yeah.
a bunch of electrical switches, so it could scramble it even more. So they were tasked to break this thing, and Tolkien realized he was there for 3 days. On staff there was Alan Turing, the
Mm.
famous mathematician and code cracker. And Alan Turing had invented, literally on paper in 1936, in his paper on computable numbers with an application to the 𝙬𝙚𝙧 problem. He had invented the digital computer on paper to answer the 𝙬𝙬𝙧 problem, which is called the decision problem in German. But it was about algorithms. So Tolkien trained for 3 days there, and he was actually offered a job, a very good job with the government, to continue on with this code cracking team, and he said no. And people had no idea. Well, why would he not? Why would he say no? Well, I've come to realize that he would have seen a couple of things very clearly. He would have seen that this has nothing to do with language. He was a philologist. He spoke like 12 languages.
Mm.
They weren't trying to crack some crazy language. They were trying to crack a machine that ciphered the German language, and then they could be deciphered back into the German language. So it wasn't about language per se. It was about pattern recognition, statistics, and probabilities. It was the realm of the mathematician and the statistician, for people like Alan Turing. So Tolkien got out, and because what he realized was not just that he would have a very limited role, but also that all they were going to do, we saw with Turing, was we're just going to make a more powerful machine
Of course.
to
Yeah.
defeat the other machine. And war is the only exponent, the only thing that benefits in war are machines, never the human being.
And
And
banks.
Tolkien was very he wasn't a Luddite, but he had a love-hate. He didn't have much love. He didn't like machinery. He would rather have things, just the horse, the buggy, some of the basics, maybe the water wheel. Those things are fine, but as soon as you start developing technology and machinery to dominate other people and to dominate nature, you have entered an evil realm, and it
Yes.
always has some other payoff down the road that you didn't see coming.
It's a
You only
constant
saw the
Pandora's
candy.
box. Yeah.
It is. You only saw the candy coating. You didn't look at the rotten core. And
Right.
Tolkien was very much so he got out and wrote the Lord of the Rings. And the Lord of the Rings is heavily influenced by a lot of things. But I think what would be most interesting, probably to your listeners, would be the fact that it was very heavily influenced by three of Alan Turing's most famous papers. And those papers are 1936, on computable numbers with an application to the 𝙬𝙬𝙧 problem, where he invents the digital computer on paper. And then in 1950, the computing machinery and intelligence, where he redefines
Mhm.
the word intelligence and makes it mean just basically imitation. If I build a machine, you can't tell you're talking to a machine, whether it's a machine or a human. Who are you to say that it's not intelligent? That's kind of his
Right.
attitude. Okay. And he also had this crazy notion that a machine could possibly harbor a human soul. And his motivation for that from a very young age was
What year was that?
this would have been, the paper was published in 1950.
Wow.
Okay. Tolkien's mythology was published in 54. So, and he made a lot of changes late, and you can read it, and it's all logged in what's called the History of Middle Earth, which is a big 4-volume stack of hardcover books that Christopher Tolkien put together, all of his father's notes. So I've traced it, so you can see where and when these changes were made to incorporate some of these ideas. And then there was a paper published in 1952 called The Chemical Basis of Morphogenesis. And morphogenesis, for the sake of simplicity, I'll just say maybe it's kind of like a version of embryology.
Yeah.
So it's Turing figured out the mathematics on a very, very, very fine, remote scale, how things change. In other words, and he would describe it as a homogeneous substance in a state of unstable equilibrium.
Hmm.
with a slight disturbance can manifest into all kinds of things, all different shapes, different patterns, maybe all different, different animal even.
Hmm.
So he figured out the mathematics to that. Well, modern technology, modern computer science is using that same those same mathematics for our AI and whatnot to generate its own neural network. And that's how it goes a long ways in those mathematics from the 1952. So people don't realize the mathematics has been around for a long time, but what hasn't been around has been the technical and materials uh, capacity to make some of these things a hideous reality. Well, now they are. So Tolkien incorporated these things into his mythology. And what he did was he created those who are familiar, the deeper familiarity beyond just the movies. The three original movies were pretty well done, but they were misleading because they changed a lot of things and left out a lot of things. The Hobbit movies were just terrible. And
Terrible.
this Rings of Power from Bezos is just absolutely disgusting. So it's just an absolute perversion of Tolkien's. But there again, we're programmable. So people see this stuff and then they can't tell, well, is that what really happened in the book or is that just in the movies? And you have
Right.
to be really careful about that. So he wrote this and incorporated not just that, but a lot of other things into his mythology to give us Middle Earth is the material brain. That is Middle Earth.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, the across the sea, which winds up being the realm, the domain of the feelings, is the immaterial intellect. Okay, and that's the undying land of the immaterial intellect. And in an unfallen state, all of Arda, and it's called Arda, the whole world that was the little kingdom, we'll call it that he
Mhm.
calls it, is called Arda. That's the whole, but it's not this world. It's a representative human being, or at least the human soul in contact with the material brain, and it's a representative human soul that actually represents all of Western history, all of Western civilization in a person. So what's happening is in Middle Earth, he gives all these attributes of the psychology, and it's the psychology, not our type of modern psychology, which is broken,
Quack.
which
Yeah.
is
Quack.
very broken. Yeah, it's psychology in the scholastic sense. It's the scholastic psychology of Thomas Aquinas that was rejected by Bacon and Descartes and the Enlightenment machine
Mhm.
heads. Okay, they rejected that. But what Tolkien does is he gives all the attributes of the rational human soul personality. He gives them character so they can actually play a part in a story.
Hmm.
So, for instance, if you just to go into the hobbits, everybody, what are the hobbits? Hobbits are habits.
Hmm.
And the four hobbits that we know so well, Frodo, Sam, Pippin, and Merry, are the cardinal virtues. Virtues are also called habits.
Right.
The good habits are virtues. The bad habits are vices, virtue
Right.
and vice. So the four hobbits are the cardinal virtues. Frodo's temperance. That's why he's the only one that can carry the ring. And let's just get this out of the way. The one ring is binary code. It's
Right.
the language of the machine.
Hmm.
It makes everything possible, from virtual reality to digital money to self-driving cars to robotics to the surveillance state to everything requires ones and zeros.
Right.
That's direct. That's the only thing the machine can respond to is on and off, very complex patterns and series of on and offs, ones and zeros. Frodo can carry the ring. And that's the language, that's temperance. Temperance is the virtue that we moderate our appetites for, particularly for physical pleasure.
Mhm.
Okay. Gollum is intemperance. He has no control. He's had that ring for 500 years and slaked his lusts on it for 500 years in the Misty Mountains. Okay. On whatever he can get out of that
He's a
ring,
slave to his pleasure. Yeah.
slave to his pleasure. And he's beyond redemption. He's intemperance. As Aquinas calls it, he's the lowest of the low of bad habits.
Hmm.
Okay. That's why he calls Frodo master, not because Frodo has the ring. Frodo's the only one that can carry the ring. Sam is fortitude. That's the never give up.
Mhm.
Hang in there and never give up and push and push and push and just never give up. These are the interior. Those are called the interior virtues. Now, the two exterior virtues are Pippin is prudence and Merry is justice. And that's why
Hmm.
they live outside. They don't live in the Shire. They're from the outside the Shire. They live in Tookville and Buckland.
Hmm.
They're not in the Shire because they're exterior virtues. That you'll find this funny. Thomas Aquinas calls the cardinal virtues, he calls them appetitive
Hmm.
habits. And that's why Tolkien has them eat so much. They have such huge appetites
Makes
because
sense.
they're appetitive. The cardinal virtues are appetitive. That's how we moderate our appetites, inside and outside. So it's also funny that the word habit in the whole mythology is used 9 times,
Hmm.
8 times in one chapter. And you know what that one chapter is? It's the prologue concerning hobbits.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
hobbits are habits.
I'm pausing here. So
Yeah.
everyone should know, and I know many authors, and I know many people who've written books, and I've had conversations that I don't even know how to explain,
Mhm.
to be honest with you, in my life. But I can tell you that, no, first and foremost, I don't read fiction. I've read like 5 fiction books in my life. I've never read The Lord of the Rings, so I'm
This
fascinated
isn't
by.
fiction,
Oh,
Eric.
and that's where I'm going, Paul.
Okay,
So
okay.
a lot of times you will find people who write what's called faction novels. No one ever calls it faction, especially like classified information is leaked through fiction novels and fiction
Mhm.
movies.
Yeah,
And it's leaked because these people know this information. They know if they share it boldly and honestly, they'll probably end up being unalived. And they wrap it around science fiction, or they wrap it around mythology, or some of these, kings and kingdom type stories,
that's
fiction.
exactly right.
So there is so much fiction that is created as a leak of classified information, of philosophy, of spiritual information. It's leaked out through fiction, and human beings just can't simply digest it. They just kind of look at it and say, "Well, that was." My parents used to tell me, "Oh, that was just a movie."
Yeah,
Right, but there's so many parts of a movie or parts of a book that
yeah,
the author is literally telling you truth people don't want to hear, and this is fascinating to me because I love these conversations. Like,
yeah. Well,
meeting the
that's
author of
exactly
The Matrix was one of the coolest moments of my life. So
well, that's
keep
exactly
going,
why
Paul.
Tolkien wrote his mythology, because he knew if he just came out and expressed
Oh, he'd
what was
be.
at stake and what was going to go on, it would have been squashed. They certainly never would have turned it into 3
That's
multi-billion
exactly right.
dollar movies.
Yep.
He knew that Tolkien knew that if he just wrote the mythology and just gave it no, it's not about anything. It just wrote it for entertainment. Don't try to make something out of it. And then of course he made that statement at the beginning of the Silmarillion where he said, "I cordially dislike allegory," but he said, "I dislike the type of allegory that dominates the reader's imagination. They can't think about anything else." And I think he was really referring to some of the uses of his best friend C.S. Lewis.
Sure.
That was just the allegory. The allegory was really in your face, and you couldn't
One
get
of my
away.
favorite authors, but
Me
yeah.
too. I love him too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he didn't like that kind of allegory. So he wrote he wrote more like simile and metaphor.
Yeah.
Okay. So rather than, and he called it, I prefer the term applicability. And the applicability in this case is the history and the present and the future of the Western world. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is if you
Yeah.
can
Keep
see
going with
it.
that. I've got about 11 minutes left on recording.
That's Middle Earth.
Hmm.
That's a frenetic diagram from the pseudoscience of the Victorians. Okay, that they claimed that they could determine what every area of the brain was responsible for. So that's what Tolkien uses as his map. He said, "I very cleverly started with the map." This is the map that he started with. Mordor is down
Wow.
here in the cerebellum, down here, and that's the realm of fear and crime and hate. Okay,
The alligator brain. Yeah.
yeah. And of course, that's also where the Tower of Barad-dûr is. And make no mistake, the Tower of Barad-dûr is the microchip.
Hmm.
And Sauron is artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
And
because you
it's
can
all
see
made
all
possible. It's all made,
omnipresent like a god, but
yeah,
not a god.
it's all made possible by the One Ring, the language of the machine. Of course,
Go through the characters. So you went through the 4 hobbits.
yeah.
Who's
Dwarves,
Gandalf?
Gandalf is philosophical wisdom.
That's obvious.
Okay.
That's an
These are
obvious.
the wizards are the 5 wizards. There's 5 now. Most people don't realize this. 2 are exterior and they keep going to the east, which is outside. The cosmological. They are art and science, called the Blue Wizards, and they don't really play a part. But Tolkien accounted for them because there are 5, and these are the 5 ways in which human beings, man, gains knowledge according to Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. I think it's book 6 of Nicomachean Ethics. So Gandalf. So the 3 that count are philosophical wisdom, practical wisdom, and rational intuition. Radagast is rational intuition. Practical knowledge is Saruman. And that's just how we gain the things for this life, for comfort, for pleasure, for whatever, or
Power and
for
greed. Yeah.
survival. He has practical wisdom now has taken over academia. at Isengard. Isengard now, the Black Tower, is the blackened tower, the ivory tower of academia. Moria is the halls of academia. Dwarves are scientific knowledge. They're not there. That's why they're adopted. They're not a necessary part of the rational soul. You can still essentially be a human being and have a rational soul, but have no scientific knowledge. So they're not essential, but the other things are. So philosophical, and I'll just say, men are reason, all the levels of reason, depending on what type of men they are, all the way from the elf friends, the Dunedain, Aragorn, the highest, which is high reason. He contemplates the eternal. Okay.
I was going to ask the elves. I don't know too much. I've only seen the movie. I've never read the book.
Elves are faith and the different realm. And that's why they're both across the way in the immaterial realm and here in the material realm. Okay. So we've got, so Gandalf at first, though, is Gandalf the Grey. This is pagan pre-revelation philosophy, like of Aristotle and Plato. Okay. Socrates, these guys before. When he falls in the halls of academia and he falls to the Belrog, and the Belrogs are spirits of pride. Okay. When he falls to the spirit of pride in academia, the spirit of pride there, I'll keep it short, brings him down to defeat his philosophical. This is artist philosophical wisdom. It's being attacked in college, in academia.
Oh, 100%.
He brings him down into the body. And he shows him, and that's Durin's bane, and Durin is Darwin. Okay. And he shows Gandalf philosophical wisdom. You're just an animal. See your digestive system and everything, and goes all the way down into the bowels and finds the bottom of the endless stair, which is the spinal cord. And Gandalf chases and comes and pops out of the eye like an eye socket. This is in the story. And finally he defeats the spirit of academic pride, and he defeats Darwinism. Well, how he comes back, he doesn't die like in the movies. The eagles bring him back. And the eagles are the good reading that we do. They serve Manwë. Manwë is the power of sight. Okay, so the eagles are the good things that we read. So Gandalf philosophical wisdom reads the good things. It saves him from Darwinism. And he comes back Gandalf the White. And now he's a full-blown Thomistic theologian, full of the Christian revelation. And that's why he's Gandalf the White, and he's the most powerful being in the mind now. Now he claims for himself the spirit of decisiveness, because he's not gray anymore. He knows exactly what he has to do and where he has to be. So he claims Shadowfax, the fastest horse in the realm, the fastest horse in all of Arda. That is, I need to be here. That's decisiveness. He knows exactly what he has to do. And his whole mission is to defeat the microchip. And that's what he has to do. And he has to let temperance do its job. At heart, the whole thing is about and Tolkien very cleverly tells us this, the whole mythology is about the destiny of Tom Bombadil and Goldberry. And if you haven't read the books, you don't know who they are. And they were left out because nobody's ever realized who they are. Well, I explain who they are. Tom Bombadil and Goldberry are the fallen spirits of the trees of light, the silver tree, Telperion, and the golden tree, Laurelin. And they are, Tom Bombadil is the rational will. That's why he can do anything he wants. He's the will, the free will. Goldberry, his wife, is the rational intellect, which includes the conscience. Okay, so it's all about them. But they can't, Tom Bombadil can make the ring disappear, if you've read the books, but he can't quit.
I didn't read the books, but I've heard that from other.
Well, you should. He can't quit the ring any more than if I've smoked, 3 packs of cigarettes for the last 20 years, I'm just going to quit today. You have to develop new habits. So what do? They call the rational will and the intellect, call the cardinal virtues out of the realm of the Shire, the realm of the habits, call them out to send them on a quest to kill the ring, to destroy the ring. And it's up to Tom Bombadil at the end. That's why Frodo can't do it. Frodo puts on the ring. Temperance can't destroy it. Temperance can't destroy Gollum. Now it's become an addiction. Only Tom Bombadil does. And that's why you hear Frodo speak like it's somebody else's voice. It's Tom Bombadil. Tom Bombadil casts Gollum in, because that's the will. At the end, temperance and fortitude have done their part. They have followed through the whole way to reduce Gollum. That's why Gollum is always starved and less strong, and he's just emaciated in the end. They've starved him. They've disallowed him to grow and be what he is, which is a monster. Okay. The other thing too, if you've seen the movies, at least they did a pretty good job with Shelob, the big spider.
Oh yeah, I remember that scene. I remember that.
She's pornography.
Wow, that's
Shelob is pornography. She is the daughter of Ungoliant, who killed the trees of light and put Arda in a state of mortal sin.
So that's why he would look in the spider's eye. Didn't he look in the spider's eye and got in in a trance, and then all of a sudden he was wrapped up? I don't. I'm not a big Lord of the Rings fan.
Anyway, it wasn't. But what fights them back? You'll get a kick out of this. What fights them back is the Phial of Galadriel, and I won't go into who she is or these other elves. It's really fascinating. If you thought anybody who thinks the Lord of the Rings mythology is beautiful, because it's amazingly more beautiful than you realize. The Phial of Galadriel, it's a phial, okay? And it's got the light collected from the one Silmaril up in the north, which is from Ariandil, has the Silmaril on his brow up in the north, in the sky up in the north. She's collected the light from that. Now, in this phial, she gives it to him, and like say in the movie, to be a light when all other lights go out. Okay, so Frodo has the phial, and he has his elfish sword, and his elfish sword is Sting, and that was made by the elves, made by faith. Okay, they push
and the
back.
sword glows when orcs are coming, right?
It
when
turns
evil's
bright.
approaching. The sword
Well,
of
when
faith.
orcs are, particularly when orcs are, or goblins, okay,
Yeah.
or Urukai, we could go into them too, which is fascinating. But
I have 2 minutes left.
Okay, they push Shelob back with the Phial of Galadriel, and that's filial fear. Filial fear, as Aquinas tells us very clearly, is the next step up and the highest step from servile fear. Servile fear is just the fear of punishment. Filial fear is the fear of offending God, because we've developed a relationship with Christ and we don't want to offend him. And looking at pornography is a vile, vile offense against our Savior.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't participate in pornography, not because we're afraid of punishment, going to burn in hell, and not because we're afraid of getting caught. We don't do it because we know that that's a huge offense to our relationship with Christ. And that's the only thing that can outdo pornography. If we're just afraid of the fires of hell, we'll never stop watching it.
Right.
Because those are two visceral, physical experiences, and one's competing against the other. The fires of hell might be 50 years down the road. The orgasm, the experience of pornography is right now in my face all the time.
Right.
Okay. And I fed that Gollum very well, and he's very strong. So filial fear is the only thing that push it back. And Arda has developed a relationship with Christ, has developed a relationship with God, and doesn't participate and gets out of the web of pornography. And we have to do that too. So Tolkien gives us all the answers we need to push back from artificial intelligence. And that is, we have to cultivate virtue. We have to become saints. Because the machine says of itself, it's incapable of morals and ethics, and we're capable of them. We can transcend this realm. The machine can't. The machine is stuck in this realm. This is the machine's realm. And if you're in this realm and you can't transcend this realm on some level, you're lunch for artificial intelligence. And there's going to be a lot of people get eaten for lunch.
Oh, it's already happening.
Yeah.
Paul List. Man, this is a cool interview. I definitely want to get you back on here, and
I'd love to come back on.
Do a longer session. I think we have some great conversation. Half of the audience is going to think they're going to think that you're a crazy nerd, for sure, because of Lord of the Rings. I'll tell you right now, I have met hundreds of authors in the course of my life, and I have yet to hear. I will hear tie-ins from fiction books into humanity all the time. I hear it probably twice a week. Fascinated by these conversations. I have not heard this. I have not read The Lord of the Rings. The way that you're throwing out information, you clearly have multiple times. And tying it together with the author's intentions in life is how you understand what the actual, like you were saying, the essence of the message, not just the message itself. The message itself, especially in fiction, really, really detailed fiction, there is almost 99% chance that the author through fiction is trying to tell you something. You know, even Stephen King does this. Even evil Stephen King does this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like it is your negative piece, your negative side of your society. Maybe we'll do that in the next conversation. I'll run through the books that I know. I don't know Stephen. I would never actually even take a meeting with Stephen
I
King.
have no use for him.
Yeah, he's just darkness.
Yeah.
But there are so many good authors that I've met who I've read their book and I met them and I talked to them and I'm like, hey, is there deeper meaning to this? And they're like, oh, I'm glad you asked. Like, because no one asks them that. And
Yeah.
when you start hearing that and going through Tolkien, is this what your book is about? Is this what Mount Doom is about? Is a breakdown of this philosophy and how it blends with
It
AI?
is. It shows it shows the philosophical. I do a pretty deep. Well, we had to reduce the book was over 1,200 pages, and both publishers said nobody's going
Oh
to read
yeah,
a 1,200
nobody's gonna read
page
that.
thing. That just
What they
you don't
will do,
have
Paul,
to.
is they'll run it through AI and ask AI, what should I know?
No,
Think
no,
for me, AI.
don't do that. That would
No,
be
don't do that.
terrible.
Don't
That
do
would be
that ever with a book,
antithetical.
please.
That'd be
Don't do that ever.
antithetical to my whole purpose. But it is a deep study of the history of philosophy and the nature of these ideas that have produced, particularly even in the progression of mathematics and the progression of the machine, okay, and the progression through the Enlightenment and the age of the machine, which is the Industrial Revolution, now come into full confluence with the age of data of information.
Yep.
So the information age and the age of the machine have come to this crossroads and met, and that's what gives us artificial
That's the
intelligence
inflection
and
point.
a good heavy dash of Darwinism to boot. And you've got a real cauldron witch's brew of death for humanity. And we better wake up and take charge of our humanity again, reestablish our relationship with the creation, reestablish our relationship with the creator.
Absolutely.
Okay, and try to, and that's how we transcend. Our bodies are going to be here, but our spirits and our souls can transcend this realm and get out of the domain of the machine. And we especially have to, one of the reasons I did this was particularly to try to communicate with young people, particularly young men, because young men are usually the ones that are the most men are most attracted to the Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings mythology is by far the most important and the most popular literature in human history. And we have to realize it's time that at this time, Tolkien realized that all he had to do was write it, let it go into the future. And he knew that in God's providence, in God's time, God would find somebody, choose somebody to figure it out. That just happened to be me. I don't know why. I'm not particularly special. Um, but he knew that it would intersect with what it was designed to intersect with. And it was a great leap of faith with J.R.R. Tolkien to do that. He knew God would, when the time comes, Tolkien's mythology will be there and be unraveled. And ta-da! Here I am. I've been in the midst of you all the time, and now you know me. You love this, and now you know what it's about. And
Wow.
now it's saturated through the whole world like an antidote to the viper's venom. We've been bitten by the viper's venom, and Tolkien's mythology is really part of the antidote.
Yeah, we're bitten frequently,
Yeah,
frequently by
we sure
by
are.
venom.
Yeah.
So, Paul, how can people follow you? Where can they buy the book? Is the
Well,
book
I'm not
available
real
yet?
big on. I mean, I got to get better at this whole, Instagram,
Oh no,
Substack.
I hate it too.
Facebook.
I do
Me
it
too.
all the time. I
I
hate
don't
it.
do it,
Yeah.
but you can't read mountdoom.com. You can go there and I will order the book. I'll sign it, put it in the mail for you, or you can go to Amazon or anybody. Everybody sells it. We've got a
I'm getting a copy as soon as I
yeah,
get back from this
we
meeting I got to go to.
we've got a
Absolutely.
4.9. We've got a 4.9 rating on Amazon. People absolutely love. They're blown away that somebody's finally figured out what this is
Tolkien.
really about, and
Yeah.
it's so important. And
Oh my gosh.
don't ever look at it as just fantasy anymore. This is deadly, deadly serious. Like,
Again, it's the message versus the essence. It's so
yeah,
important. Message and messenger are totally different things too, and
yeah.
we confuse it. Oh, I won't listen to that person because they did this. Listen to
Oh,
everyone.
absolutely.
Use
Yeah,
discernment.
yeah.
Paul List, thank you so much for coming on here. Let's
Thanks
get you
so much.
back on here in a couple weeks. We'll continue this conversation. We'll get into the clear divide of Christians that clearly need to unite at this point in time. Put aside the differences of someone else's interpretation of theology. Go to the Word of
Sure.
God.
Yeah,
But
sure.
Paul, thank you so much. God bless you. God
God
bless this
bless you too,
country.
Eric. Thanks so
No,
much for having me. I look forward to talking to you again. It was a lot of fun.
absolutely, absolutely. We'll see you next time on the Rice Report, everyone. Thank you so much.